that. Let me share some slides. Need to share my screen. That would be a great start. Here we are. So hopefully you can see some slides. Why have I got the wrong view? So why is that not working? Sorry guys, one sec. Can you raise your thumbs if you can see some slides? Should say property. Oh, thanks, Nick. Okay, great. We will get started. So a huge thank you to everyone that's joined for this call. Today is a session about property and crypto wealth strategies. Great to have some people with us. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Catherine Wooler and I am MD of Daxi in the UK and Ireland. And today's session is about the overlap between the property and the crypto ecosystems. So loads of people are listening live. I know a lot of people will be catching this on Listen Again. So today is the 3rd of June. So all the figures and all the information I'm giving you is correct as of 3rd of June. If you're watching this weeks down the line, the UK is still in lockdown, or of course, if you're outside the UK. So we do have offices, beautiful offices in central Oxford. But today I am broadcasting from my property, just to explain that. So a quick disclaimer, the information I'm going to give you today is not intended to be investment advice, financial advice or trading advice. Rather, it's education, inspiration and information, certainly not a sales pitch for Daxi, rather just a collection of my thoughts around property and crypto, as I am one of the few people out there that's had a career with the two overlapping. And you also hear from two speakers who have kindly given their time today to talk about their experience of being involved in both. So look, Daxi, just to give you a tiny bit of background, is an education-led business. We are a crypto exchange and we put out huge amounts of free education. This little slide is a screenshot from our website. And our tagline is that we make crypto easy to understand. So we put out huge amounts of free education. We do webinars, we've got ebooks, we've got blue papers. So if you're starting to look at crypto as an asset class or try and educate yourself, we really seek to be the leading business to do that. And we put out loads of content through lots of channels, including social media, around crypto themes, and generally intended for those people who are new to crypto. So today's presentation shouldn't be too long. I'm intending on talking for 15, maybe 20 minutes. We always try and present in a fun and jargon-free way. The only thing worse than death by boring PowerPoint is death by those complicated graphs that the trading folk love to talk about to show off that, in my opinion, make your retina bleed. So today's agenda, obviously around property and crypto and why you may wish to consider crypto as diversification around property. We'll talk a little about what the arguments for crypto are, why you might wish to consider it, and hopefully it will spark off a bit of thinking. For those of you, there's a few people on this call who I don't know, who've joined us new, which is great. If you look at the bottom of the screen, on the little black line, there'll be a chat function. So please feel free to post any questions or comments as I'm speaking, particularly if I'm saying anything that you can relate to or has happened to you. And if you just put a hi Catherine in there, just so I know you're all there and it works, I would really appreciate that. So yeah, today we'll talk about my experience of property. I've had quite a lot of career in property, why property and crypto go so well together, where we feel the market's going post-coronavirus for both property and crypto, some of the challenges, of course, that we are all facing, a very condensed version of why crypto is exciting. We have a lot of content around this. I want to give you a very, very brief version, which hopefully will spark off some ideas for people. What to expect from diversification, how and where to start in crypto, what to avoid. Obviously, there's a load that's gone on the industry that hasn't been great, where there's been some challenges, so particularly in terms of credibility. And you'll hear from two guest speakers at the end who I am very grateful for joining. So thank you guys. I know that you're on and I'll come to you in due course. So this property probably is my love letter to property. For those who are in Daxi, where I've been since the beginning of the year, probably don't know a massive amount of just how much property I've got up to in my career. So I've had about 17 years of either working in property or investing personally, often both at the same time. So when I first graduated, I went and worked for a posh estate agency. It was so posh, they called it a property consultancy. It was definitely an estate agency. We had sales, we had lettings, we did a bit of land finding for developers, and I started renovating. So that was literally after I graduated. And I got loads of aggro. People thought I was mad for buying a 3-bed semi as my first property when everyone else was buying a 1-bedroom flat on a repayment mortgage. I went interest only and bought an absolute wreck. And that enabled me to then remortgage and buy other investments. I spent 7 years working for a hotel developer, so a commercial developer, and during that time, I sold £400 million worth of investment property all over the world. We had buyers for that, and I pioneered a pension route and also trained up 2,500 of our agents to represent those developments, which was really good fun. I then worked for a social housing developer. We had a fixed interest bond that was in the US. Again, we had investors all over the world. I worked for Europe's largest peer-to-peer lender by asset class. Obviously, that was in property. And we worked across residential, commercial, all sorts of weird and funky stuff, as long as it was property. We had farmland. I remember us having graveyards. We had a caravan park. That was obviously focused on lending. More recently, I've worked in technology for investment bank asset managers and hedge funds. We had one of the largest tech providers for OTC derivatives. So I really kind of got from property into technology in the last couple of years. I've been advisor to 2 different blockchain startups, one of which was in property. So as I left that, we were using that technology from a crypto perspective to assist Sotheby's, the very posh auction house, in raising. That's currently valued as a business at 15.4 million. And I was there to advise the founders. And I also advise a health tech company based on blockchain, which I still remain a non-executive director for. That's currently as a startup valued at 5 million. And I've been personally involved in crypto for the last 2 years. Just wanted to diversify a little bit outside of my property interests. And I'm currently MD for Daxi, which is a crypto asset exchange in the UK and Ireland. So I'm one of the few people that can talk quite knowledgeably about property and crypto in the same breath. So certainly my intention today is absolutely not to slate property. I'm a huge believer. I've been involved for a number of years. So since 2005, I have invested in buy-to-let. Personally, I have primarily been involved in residential property, obviously got mortgages on those properties. So apologies for some of the fact that these pictures are not great. Obviously, I've owned some of those properties for a number of years, and I was embarrassed to realise some of them I didn't actually have photographs of. So I'm afraid that's courtesy of some quite quick Google stalking yesterday via Google Maps. So in 2005, I started purchasing property. As I mentioned, I bought something derelict to do up. I also bought a lot under the no money down scheme that existed in those halcyon days 10, 12 years ago. Looks like I really like brown brick, but basically I bought anything I thought I could get yield on. There was a lot of talk around financial freedom and it replacing your income, which personally for me it never did. It was just a bit of a side hustle. I was having far too much fun working on businesses I was involved in. So yeah, I bought mostly with a limited deposit. I bought some stuff in the southeast, in sort of High Wycombe and Aylesbury. I bought a few things in the Midlands. For reasons best known to myself at the time, I bought in Stoke-on-Trent. The cheapest thing I bought was around 80,000. The most expensive I bought was about 400,000. As you can see, some of it new builds, some of it technically rated a hovel. Some of it I had to do complete renovation on. I'm a dab hand with a crowbar now. If you're stressed, I highly recommend getting to work on something skanky with a crowbar. I have to confess to a brief interlude in farming, which I'm just going to chalk up to experience. That was disastrous, transpires. It's just a lovely, lovely hobby. And the purpose of this presentation is just to draw some opinions of, how property and crypto can sit nicely together. So I think I want to just talk about some of the challenges that property is likely to be facing in the near term. I think all industries are obviously in for some hard times post the word unprecedented. I like the headline, unprecedented use of the word unprecedented. But look, I think no one is under any illusions we're up for some tough times. And I think that, in terms of economic backstory, there's not really anything we can compare to. So this is some of the stuff that keeps me awake as a property investor. So of course the deposits are high. I'm in the southeast of England. I know that to get involved in buy-to-let today will cost me 50, 60,000 as a deposit. There is some work going on around creative financing, but of course there is a limit to that, and you've got to be able to find the interesting deals to do it. I think some of the financing from banks, as the banks lose confidence a little bit, becomes challenging. You will get mortgage products that have a lower deposit, but of course the interest rate tends to be less preferable. And I think there's a real sense that those prices have leveled off. When I was first buying property, 12, 15 years ago, there was a real sense of people were going to get those really great yields, and they could replace their income. They can give up the day job, and not have to bother with 9 to 5. They can live off cash flow from their properties. And I think those yields have leveled off a little bit. In terms of capital growth, I remember being told that property prices doubled every 7 to 10 years, which I think was true for an extended period of time. But as you can see from the average house prices in the UK, obviously we had a general financial crash in 2008. It probably took us till 2015 for that to recover. So people that bought in that period of time were in negative equity. And since then, that growth has been more stagnant. And I think particularly now, there's a real sense that there's a lack of interesting stock. It's a fairly sluggish market. No great surprise that things drew to a close during lockdown. Of course, we couldn't do viewings. We were actually advised not to complete on property. The other thing that is huge in terms of a change in UK buy-to-lets over the last couple of years is a massive change in taxation. And forgive me if you already know this, but a number of years ago, if you received, say, £1,000 a month of rent, and you had, say, £500 of mortgage and £100 worth of maintenance, you would pay tax on your profit on the remainder. The government then realised that buy-to-let landlords were doing quite well, and it was quite a good way of raising money. So the taxation changed. So now when you have rental income, you don't get anywhere near as much relief on the costs, particularly on the mortgage costs. You actually pay taxation. So for me personally, that has meant that over a period of time on those properties I showed you pictures of, it went from being cash flow positive, it was a good amount of money I was receiving each month, across most of my buy-to-lets now. Because of that change in taxation, I actually now write my tenants a check. I'm paying for them to be there. So whilst I've benefited from capital growth, certainly in terms of cash flow, that's less interesting. I think particularly with the recession coming up, there's concern around rental voids. I know that a recent survey showed that around 40% of tenants were concerned they wouldn't be able to pay their rent in times coming soon. And of course, if 40% of renters stop paying, obviously that has a knock-on effect for landlords, which is not great. So look, I'm not saying those challenges are insurmountable, but if, like me, you are a buy-to-let landlord and an investor, those are some of the things that keep me awake at night. And I think the problem really is about finding yield. I watched a presentation a couple of years ago which said money is like water. It will flow to the most interesting places. So if all of a sudden property is dreadful but stocks and shares are great, people will take the money out of property, stocks and shares. If all of a sudden gold's a great investment, same thing again. So people are very simply trying to find yield. And I think particularly for property and for crypto, it's competing with a number of other asset classes. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about some of the backdrop around what's available for people that are finding yield. So the FTSE 100, I'm trying not to put too many graphs into this. I'm pretty sure this is my only one. The FTSE 100 year to date, obviously that is not a great picture. Of course, the FTSE 100 is a great health check for the UK economy. It is the top 100 traded companies. It had a 25% hit almost overnight as coronavirus hit us in the UK. And of course, a lot of our traditional vanilla financial products are based on that. So pensions, savings, investments, often FTSE linked. And of course, the return on cash right now is not so hot. So this is a screenshot from Money Supermarket, which compares various financial products. And the best savings rate I could find on an easy access account was 0.75%. So the Bank of England base rate is 0.1, which is, to be clear, the lowest ever rate we've had since the Bank of England was created a couple of hundred years ago. So obviously very bad news for people that are sitting on cash. And particularly in crypto, we talk to lots of people that are looking to switch some of their cash to crypto for a better return. And I'll talk around some of those themes over this presentation. So I wanted not to talk for hours about the economy for no other reason than it's pretty depressing. And as a property and a crypto person, I spend a lot of time thinking about what's going on and how that affects the property and the crypto that I own. And particularly for house prices, I used to get very annoyed. The Daily Mail particularly is neurotic about house prices. And you see day in, day out talk about, are house prices going up? Are they going down? Is it stagnant? And often if you just live in a house, you think, well, actually, I don't really care if my house has gained a couple of grand or lost a couple of grand because I need somewhere to live. But I think there's a couple of things that are the big factors that I think just over one slide I want to talk about. So look, what is going to affect house prices and make them go down? So obviously we have a triple whammy of inflation, high unemployment and the printing of money. So I think we don't really know where we're at in terms of unemployment because there's so much data around the fact that everyone is furloughed. Obviously right now in the UK, you can have your wages guaranteed by the government up to of 80% up to 2.5 grand. And it's quite tough to know how many of those jobs will exist in 3 or 6 months time. So they reckon right now that there's 8 million people in the UK that are furloughed. And the labour market experts are expecting the unemployment rate to at least double in the next few months. And I think, look, just generally in terms of the economic situation, it's not my role to sit here and upset everybody. But the announcements between the 11th of March and the 30th of April, so relatively recently, the bailout for coronavirus is around 100 billion. So that's a huge amount of money that has to come from somewhere. I'd be very, very surprised if we didn't see taxation going up. We're going to see a certain amount of inflation. And of course, there is a huge amount of money being printed to try and get us out of that. So look, all fairly depressive in terms of house prices. I was then trying to look at what would make house prices go up. One of the things that can happen is that wages rise. So if we can all afford a bit more on our mortgages, it makes the prices a bit higher. I personally don't see wages rising in the near term. The deposit can decrease if the banks are feeling very positive about property as a market. You start to see 95% or even 100% loan to value mortgage products, which again, the banks are not exactly full of joy at the moment. Or of course, mortgages can get cheaper. But of course, the bank rate being 0.1 right now, again, there is just not really any more tools we can use to squeeze the economy. So some really interesting times for property. For me personally, across my buy-to-let portfolio, which obviously I've shown you some pictures of, I don't think in the properties I own, I've seen any capital growth in the last couple of years. So to be clear, I bought for cash flow, that's gone now, courtesy of all the taxation changes. And in terms of capital growth, of course, I've made some good capital growth over the 12, 15 years I've owned them. But that for me personally, what I bought has now tailed off. So my strategy over the next couple of years actually is to sell the properties that I own. So I want to talk about how crypto and property go well together. I'm well placed to be very passionate about both. And I don't mind saying the first time I bought myself some Bitcoin a couple of years ago, I had to ask a friend where to go. Luckily, I know a chief technical officer who works in fintech, and he said, yeah, there's a couple of exchanges, you can find them online. And I put 100 quid into Bitcoin just really to see what would happen. So I was able to set up an account online. I KYC'd, which is know your client, the anti-money laundering stuff. You have to send some ID. So I managed to put in 100 quid and I was very proud of myself. And over the last couple of years, I have bought more, and I bought across a couple of different coins, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and the DAC. I will talk a bit about what that means and what coins are available, but I've bought across a number of different crypto assets. So there are 3 reasons why people like me and Gareth and Nick, we're going to talk to, have got from property and into crypto. There's 3 reasons, and that's growth, and growth. So I think it'd be fair to say anyone that's in property has only managed to find themselves in crypto just by virtue of looking for yield. And I think particularly for Daxi, we deal with a lot of businesses that are coming from a property background. And they're really looking for something that doesn't conflict with property, it's not time consuming, and particularly in terms of their branding, for sort of the property investment businesses that we're working with. We're certainly not focused on detracting from that or being detrimental to that. But the main reason is that to get involved in crypto, you don't need huge amounts of money. I mentioned that I sit just outside London. I live near High Wycombe, just west of London. And I know that for me to participate in buy-to-let in the area I live in, even some of the cheaper areas locally, is a £50,000 to £60,000 day out. And one of the real misconceptions about crypto, particularly about Bitcoin, is that in order to buy Bitcoin, you need to buy a whole one. So I'm just looking at the figures today. So whilst we're talking and whilst I'm online, I know that one Bitcoin is about £7,500, and people think that you need to buy exactly one Bitcoin, exactly 7,500 or multiples thereover. So you can get involved in crypto from a low level. We have people that use our platform that start with £100 just to see how it works. So you don't buy a fixed amount. You can choose to invest in crypto whatever you like, and it's liquid. So one of the main problems I found with property is that exit strategy. So you're either, if you suddenly need the money out, you can remortgage if you have equity, but in my experience, that can be a couple of weeks at best. Obviously, you can sell property, but again, in terms of getting involved in chains, I know people that have spent a year selling property, and again, best case scenario, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. So the great thing about crypto, particularly in what we call the blue chip coins, the reputable coins, is you can exit. So tens of billions of dollars worth a day of the blue chip cryptos are bought and sold. So if you did go and buy yourself £10,000 worth of crypto and then realize you need to exit all of it or some of it, you can do so. So for me personally, crypto has been a very pleasant addition, just in terms of strategy for having something I can get out. And right now I don't have £60,000 worth of spare cash, but I do want to have a return on the smaller amounts that I have. And there's a number of people, we do a lot of community feedback. We had a meetup recently for Daxi of 130 people, and people were saying, look, I've put relatively small amounts in. I use it as if it was a savings account just to get a return. So when we talk about crypto, I just want to spend just really 30 seconds talking about what we mean. Crypto is digital money. Obviously, there is a lot of work going on around the digitization of currency. So I don't know what the last thing you guys bought. I think I bought myself a Diet Coke yesterday in a Tesco Metro. I used a contactless credit card, and somewhere that £1.30 has moved from one computer screen to another. So money primarily now is digital anyway, and crypto is just really the next stage of that. So very much be thought of as digital money or the next version. There are enormous amounts of digital currencies. There are a lot of governments that are looking to digitize their currency. So the Bank of England and the European Central Bank and Bank of China have all got blockchain projects. So certainly digitization is happening increasingly, but in terms of the cryptocurrencies, there is a massive amount out there. Almost anyone can start a digital currency. You produce what's called a white paper. So right now today, there are over 5,500 digital currencies, and the vast majority of those are hazardous to your health, and they can be termed toxic waste. So when Daxi and other industry commentators talk about crypto, they're generally talking about what's called the blue chip coins. So Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, which is a massive proportion of daily trade volume, normally between 75 and 90%. And those are the coins that the institutional investors are interested in. So all those hedge funds and asset managers and banks, when they talk about crypto and they put their flag in the sand and say, yeah, this is what we're interested in, they mean the top of the range, reputable, long-standing, sensible use case coins. And it's not the purpose of this presentation to go into much more detail around that. But those three have been some of the best performing assets in the world, both over the last year and particularly since coronavirus. So if you're looking at getting involved from property into crypto, and starting your education around those themes, it's worth knowing that both it's outperformed pretty much everything in the last year, and specifically that it recovered harder, faster and better than any of those traditional vanilla asset classes. So there's a lot of sense in the crypto industry right now that it's becoming decoupled from the financial industry. You've got some huge hedge funds now using particularly Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. So hopefully just some themes that you may wish to look into further. So I just wanted to give you some data around that. I get told off if I put too many graphs in, so I'm fairly sure this is the only other one I'm going to be allowed. So these are some figures about percentage gain year to date, and particularly around those blue chip coins that I was talking about. So Bitcoin and Ethereum have done very well, 80% plus return. Litecoin's returned just under 11, and the DAX returned 10. So if anyone watching this presentation, either live or on Listen Again, has any property-based investment that you managed to get into on the 1st of January and you're out by June, today is June the 3rd, but if you're watching on Listen Again, I would be very interested to know if you have any property related investments that have showed that level of return and you have been able to exit. So you can private message me in the comments, or you can find me online and send me a message. So that is the reason why a lot of our property focused businesses and property focused investors are now looking at crypto. So some food for thought. So it's not the place for an 8-hour lecture on crypto. I just want to talk for 90 seconds around some of the themes that you'll see coming up around crypto. And I think that there's a huge amount of resource online. You can disappear down a black hole fairly quickly. So I really want to just summarize some of the arguments you'll see in favor of crypto, just to give you a flavor. So the major argument for what's happening in crypto right now, we put a huge amount of analysis out on social media. We're massive press commentators. I see a request for comment from the press every couple of days. We talk a lot in fintech press, Main Street press, crypto press. But the nub of that argument is that there have been waves of adoption for crypto, particularly in those blue chips. And the people that came on board a couple of years ago were massive risk takers and very early adopters. So the people that I meet that bought Bitcoin 3-4 years ago and have made several thousand% return is wonderful. I would love to have been a fly on the wall the day they came home and said, darling, I bought this thing called Bitcoin that no one's heard of. So they were really early pioneers. They've made some great gains. And we now see a lot more of the institutions coming to the table. I'll talk about some of the people that are now involved in blockchain. And as Daxi, we see that now the huge wave of adoption coming forwards is it becoming very mainstream. You may have heard of something called the Bitcoin halving recently. That occurred on the 11th of May. And when I woke up the next day, it was reported on BBC Online, which was a great day for the industry. For someone that's been involved like myself for a couple of years, it was just jaw-dropping to see it becoming the mainstream. And there's a lot of talk around the cryptos now having what's called their iPhone moment, which is they're just getting that traction and people are getting involved. And, when you see those gains of, between 10 and 80% year to date, I think that tells a very powerful story. And look, that story around crypto is very much credibility. There's been some dreadful businesses, some awful exchanges, some bad ideas. And I think crypto is now very much becoming, as I say, both mainstream and credible. So blockchain is a proven technology now. The academics came up with it 30 years ago, didn't really know what to do with it. And you'll now see blockchain being used across a huge number of industries. I'm involved in businesses in healthcare and property. You'll see it in agriculture, logistics, pharmaceuticals. So as this little graphic shows, a huge amount of different businesses that are active and getting there. Of course, you'll see a lot of retail businesses raising their hand and showing some interest. MasterCard has got crypto wallet projects. PayPal has patents in the area. Visa is partnered with Coinbase, so you can actually pay with crypto. So those are the world's biggest payment businesses getting involved. You'll also see some of the world's biggest retail businesses updating their platforms and showing interest in accepting cryptos as payment. So if you start looking around, do some Googling around Amazon, Starbucks, or Uber, or eBay, they're all talking about accepting crypto either right now or in the near future. You'll also see a lot of businesses that are involved in the infrastructure of our financial systems also getting involved. So again, these are some of the brands: New York Stock Exchange, Tier 1 banks, the world's biggest asset manager, some of the world's biggest hedge funds are all now talking around crypto. So again, I think just in terms of adoption, tells a very strong story. So look, I'm assuming if you're listening to this presentation, either live or on Listen Again, that you've got some interest in crypto. There's two ways you can store crypto. The first is that you can store it yourself on the equivalent of a USB. You need a massive string of passwords to do that. If you're listening to this call live and you've never had to reset a password, do make yourself known. But of course, if you store £10,000 worth of crypto on a USB and you lose the password, you're in trouble. The other thing you can do is find a digital asset exchange, of which there are a couple. Daxi, of course, is one, where you can buy and store your digital assets online and convert from sterling or euros or dollars or whatever currency you're in into crypto. Obviously, you need to make sure you go to a reputable one. We are based in the UK and have European licenses. A lot of those exchanges are based in some far-flung places, so very worth doing some research on that. And just to make yourself safe, secure, and also to find something user-friendly. So most of those exchanges look like a banking app. This little shot in the right-hand corner is Daxi's front end. Loads of fintechs which are very active in this area. and also focus on whether you're looking to trade. Plenty of people that buy crypto and trade each and every day. And most exchanges, Coinbase, Binance, are based on that trading model, or whether you want to hold. And they're bit like property, completely different strategies. So Daxi is focused on people that buy crypto and want to hold. Of course, you can get out whenever you like, whether it's 6 or 12 months. But most people at Daxi helps are looking to hold that for a relatively small period of time. And there's a lot of talk in the industry about the fact that those blue chip crypto should see a tenfold growth in the next year. Obviously, there's a relatively low entry level, particularly people that use the Daxi platform tend to start off in a relatively small way, just check it works and they're comfortable with it. We have a lot of repeat business from people then using the platform for larger amounts. But I think probably the most important thing is to educate. I look at what I had to learn to get involved in property. I had to learn about financing, about getting a mortgage, about the law stuff, how you exchange and complete on a property. I had to learn how to renovate. I had to learn what it cost to put in a new kitchen or bathroom. I had to learn about rental yield. I had to learn about doing my tax return. So imagine the first day you got involved in property. You had to learn a lot. So I think crypto is very similar. And particularly Daxi is a business that puts out lots of education. We certainly noticed there's a real hunger for people trying to get into that. So at Daxi, we do two things. We have a bundle product. We've done the research on what the best performing coins have been over the last year. We also have our own DAC coin as well. So again, just a bit of food for thought around people that are looking to get involved. And the other thing, of course, is the security rating. For people like me who are old enough to remember when phone banking came in, I can remember some Fry and Laurie adverts about whether it was safe. Then, of course, internet banking came in and you weren't walking down the high street to see the lady behind the till, you're doing it yourself online. So whatever you're looking to get involved in crypto, always worth using the independent security check, which is the observatory.mozilla.org. We have an independent A+ rating. Again, there's a real variety out there in terms of those exchanges. So well worth having a look into that. And there's a lot of people on this call today that are property businesses that are looking to get involved in crypto, looking to handhold clients that have an interest. We know at Daxi that most people that get involved in crypto have done so by asking friends and family for recommendation. And most of the businesses we work with our affiliate program got annoyed with people saying, oh, what should I do about crypto, and not having a place to point them. So we have an affiliate program, as do a number of other exchanges. Property businesses are increasingly drawn to that, particularly for those customers they can't help because they just can't quite stretch to that full deposit. We want to be the leading business in assisting those into what's a new industry. There's no other company that puts out the educational content that we do. We have a specialist channel for property businesses, which we're developing. We work with lots of coaches, mentors, investment property folk and rental businesses. So certainly keen to talk to those audiences. And we know that a lot of the property folk are very much looking for diversification. And we're very happy to pay generous referral fees on that basis. We also have a certification program for our affiliates. We went through a process fairly recently at Daxi. I believe we're the only exchange that has anything like it in the crypto industry broadly. So we have an affiliation program. You have to be certified to do that. And we have a very high pass rate. So for people that want to get certified, they have to score 100% on our exam. And we have several hundred, we have about 350 affiliates that have passed that so far, that are certified to go out and talk about properties. We very much want to support those that want to become involved. So look, that's well enough of my voice. I'm very, very thrilled to have two speakers online that come, like me, from a property background, but have become involved in crypto, and they've generously said that they will join us and talk about their experience. So Nick, could I start with you, if you wouldn't mind just unmuting yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone.
That's okay. Very good. Hi, Nick. So look, would you mind just, if you can start and tell us a bit about your background in property, a bit about sort of where you've come from on your property journey? That would be great.
Yeah, so it's not my main business anymore, but still heavily involved. Wife's a property lawyer. Father-in-law owns some commercial property that we help him look after. But through my 30s, so 30 to 40, that decade, I was sales director of a large property investment company in Milton Keynes, and we were selling generally leasehold flats and apartments across the UK to investors, probably about 800-900 over a 2-year period, just before 2008 hit, and then things became a little bit tricky for everybody. Left that company, and then over the next 7-8 years, ran 2 separate companies, co-director of one, and the last one was my own. And the last 2, we were selling property all over the world, the Caribbean, USA, a lot in Detroit. That was quite heavy for us, New York State, but also across Europe and the UAE as well. So
and that was investment property. That was
all
for
investment,
investors.
yeah.
Okay.
So that was, yeah. I sat on databases of investors, property investors, looking to get into property across the UK and globally, depending on where their comfort levels were. There was a combination of some, holiday usage in there, which appealed to people. But yeah, sold, like I say, probably bang on 1,000 units, I was thinking last night, across those 7 years as well.
Great, good stuff.
Currently sit on a small portfolio ourselves, a few buy-to-lets, and just recently bought some land. So I always wanted to build a couple of houses. Looks like I've now got the opportunity to get involved in that as well and tick that little property
itch
off my property bucket list, I guess. So yeah, that's the background.
Okay, great. And obviously that's a great career. Obviously achieved some great things. So can you just give us a very brief version of what inspired you to get into crypto? What made you do it? What has kind of resonated with you as a property background kind of guy?
I wanted to invest in something else. Stocks and shares scared me because I didn't know anything about it. I was very aware of Bitcoin or crypto, but you only really heard about Bitcoin. So I needed it to establish itself. And, I think it's over 10 years old now, or around about 10 years old. So about 2 years ago, I thought it would be something I wanted to get into. It would sit as another investment, something else that could give a return. I didn't want to have all my eggs in the property basket because I saw what was happening. I mean, you covered a lot of it. The tax implications are higher. You need more money to get into it. So it was just something else to have to the side. And in my very simple mind, the fact that I read a statistic last year that we spent more contactless than we did actual cash, can I believe that the way we're going is even further away from cash into a digital currency that is borderless and can be spent, globally online? Yes, I do. That just makes practical sense to me in terms of how the world's developing.
Okay, great. And can you talk a bit? I mean, you sort of said, you were aware of it and you wanted to sort of find out more. How easy has it been to access the information and sort of how did you get up and running and get started?
It wasn't easy at all, because whenever I was trying to look for information, it was just this minefield of information on the internet, and it was mysterious, it was volatile, it looked complicated, and I started to think it was as difficult to understand as, getting into stocks and shares, which I've never done either. So I was put off for quite a long time in doing it, until Daxi came along.
Very good. A little plug, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's true. It's true. It was just, it was, like I say, I couldn't find solid information out there.
Sure, yeah. So just finding the information in the right format. And what kind of support? So obviously you've done that journey yourself, which is great. We've supported you in that, which is wonderful. What kind of support are you now giving other people to get involved? So now you've done your own journey. You think, I know what people need to know. What are you able, as a Daxi affiliate, to pass on downstream?
It's the education. It's the way that most businesses have changed. It's not about pushing a sale. It's about educating people in a product, and then trusting them to be able to make a decision. If you provide information, education, and support, then when people are ready and decide to do something, then, as I felt loyal to Daxi for me sitting on a number of webinars, having conversations with you, with other affiliates, that gave me, comfort to invest. And, then I think because you've had that support, you want to pass it on to people and share that.
Yeah, sure. Wonderful. So just to be clear, it's actually a condition of being an affiliate for Daxi that you participate in the platform. We don't want people that don't know about what we do. So the entry level is 100 quid, but actually every single affiliate we have that's out there talking about what we do has already got involved to a certain extent. And look, I don't want to ask you for figures because I don't want to break your privacy, but would you mind me asking proportionally what you've made? So not numbers in terms of hard cash, but just in terms of the return. So you've been on for a couple of months ago, I think you got involved. Is that correct?
Coming up to 3 months. I invested a couple of £100, and then it was a few more, and then into the thousands. So I've made a substantial investment now. So it wasn't all in one lump. But I checked last night. As of last night, I'm 26% up on what I invested 3 months ago, which far outperforms anything I've done in property.
Yeah, sure. And look, I think we have to acknowledge that there is volatility in crypto. So one of the reasons we are not a trading exchange is that people are looking to hold for longer. Well, look, thank you so much for your comments, Nick. Is there anything else you want to add? Or if not, feel free to mute yourself. And if I can ask Gareth, I know Gareth's got a broken video, so I'm afraid you have to take my word for it. He doesn't have 3 heads. So look, thank you. Just two today. So look, morning, Gareth. Thank you for joining. Gareth similarly has become involved in crypto from a property background and has kindly agreed to join us. So look, I suppose the same question really. Can I just ask you? I know the answer because I've known you for wherever it is, 15 years. But can you just talk about your background in property and where you come from? Again, like Nick, you've got a very broad property career. So just a little around that would be great.
Of course. My main background in property is really running teams that sell property, whether it be direct properties for investment, whether that be commercial, whether that be residential, but mainly properties for investment purposes on hotels, resorts, those kind of things. I've done that for a number of years. Also worked for a company that raised finance to then go out and invest into properties around the world, mainly the US. As well as obviously some personal property that we as a family own, mainly in the region of Tuscany in Italy, that we find investors for certain projects, whether they be large projects in Florence or in the village that we have our own house in, etc. Mainly for the tourist reasons, because it's year round, it's skiing in the winter and boiling hot sun in the summer. So it obviously has an appeal all year round. Not currently, with the fact that no planes are going anywhere. That'll lead me on to probably an answer I'll give shortly about why crypto is something that I've diversified into as well. I've raised probably around £50+ million for other companies or other individuals to then use as they see free within properties for the benefit of investors, as well as obviously finding individual investors for properties that I have the access and own directly through family and myself as well.
Okay, wonderful, good stuff. So Flori, I think you started going down that route, but tell us what made you, there's obviously a few challenges you've come across. Tell us about why you chose to get into crypto.
Yes. Well, the reason I got into crypto, first of all, was prior to yourself introducing the wonderful world of Daxi to me, was my brother-in-law about 3 or 4 years ago was, he's a bit of an internet whiz, a bit of a fintech guy himself, works for various companies. He kind of introduced the world of Ripple and Bitcoin to me at that moment in time. Quickly told me to get out of Ripple and put all of the money back into Bitcoin. I didn't ask why, I just did it. So mainly I got into crypto really from a trust point of view. Obviously people who I trusted with my life, I suppose, as well as my money, were kind of telling me to do X, Y, and Z. And I followed suit. That's kind of how I first understood crypto. And to be honest with you, I never had a clue what I was doing. I just did something that a family member of mine who I knew was very techie and quite wealthy, still is, said to me, look, put a couple of £100 or a couple of grand, whatever you've got spare, into this, and let's see where we go with it. You won't lose any money, I guarantee that. Let's see how much we can make. And I've still got that. I've sold a little bit, liquidized a bit of it to fund the children that I've now got.
Expensive hobby.
Yeah, the expensive lifestyle that my wife has, especially in lockdown. ASOS has become a very big part of my life at the moment, as well as Amazon. It's mainly trust, but then obviously in the fact that I've been working in property for a long time. Look, I'm not going to badmouth property in any way, shape or form. It will always be a part of my life, and I will always sell and be involved in it. I love it, and it's a tangible aspect that I think you should always have, things that are tangible within your portfolio. Something that exists and you can kick the tires is something very, very important. That's what I'd always advise anybody that's asking me my opinion on what to invest in, something tangible, as well as something that you can, understand. With regards to crypto, with regards to property, it frustrates me. Even if I'm selling an investment property, emotion is a very big part of the sale. You know, even if somebody's
Sure.
never ever going to go to this property or use it, or, you know, sit in the lounge or cook in the kitchen, everything comes down to emotion. And if they don't like the way that the color of the walls are in the kitchen or the way the toilet flushes, believe it or not, somebody didn't buy an investment property from me because the sound of the toilet was too loud in the ensuite.
Wow.
They're never going to use it. And it baffled me. And I shook my head, pulled a funny face and said, right, time for the bar. So I kind of gave up at that point.
Very good.
And that part of that sale actually frustrates me quite a bit. The emotion part of a property investment, regardless of the reasons of why they're purchasing, takes over the need for the financial gain. And that really winds me up. So crypto is not really an emotional, it is really all about the finances. And it's about, okay, what's the yield? What's the percentage? What's the profit margin, et cetera, et cetera. That's why I've kind of diversified into that, the trust, as well as the frustration with property. And also another big part of it as well is that a lot of people came to me via introductions and also lead generation that I was providing myself. And not everybody would have the funds in their pocket to be able to place a deposit. Catherine touched on it earlier. You need 50, 60,000 here in the UK, maybe 5% or, you know, 10, 15,000 for a property that I could help you with in Europe. But not everybody's got that. But everybody's got $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, you know, and what I don't want to do as a salesman through and through, you know, it's what I've always done in my life, is how can I then, you know, capitalize on this client that's interested and I've got their ear? What can I allow them to invest in that allows me to, you know, fund my family and move them forward? And, you know, you needed lower ticket price options, and something that intrigued me, and the fact that I was invested myself, was crypto. And I researched, and then Catherine came along, started poking me about, you know, why crypto is great, and Daxi itself. And, you know, it really is. And the education they provide is second to none, because I still don't know what I've invested in away from Daxi. They've never, all I do is get an update on what I get every 3-6 months, and that's it. They haven't really told me what crypto is or blockchain. They haven't described anything to me. But I've learned more from Daxi in the last 2 to 3 months than I ever have with the last 3 years with the other products. It's a long answer to your short question.
No, that's great. Look, and it's cleverly leading me on to my next question. Can you just give me 30 seconds on what support Daxi gives you that you then pass downstream to people you're talking to?
Yeah. In a nutshell, without sounding too cheesy, Daxi do it all for me. I don't really have to do anything. I basically provide links. I provide, internet, links to send them for reading themselves. I provide them with a diary of talks and discussions that are going on, whether it be Zoom or online. It's really easy. It allows me to, number one, continue my 9 to 5. 2, stop the wife spending money on ASOS, and 3, earn some additional income from a product that really is skyrocketing at the moment with coronavirus obviously helping. I know it's sad to say, but it really is. It allows me to just, go in and out as and when I can without really spending too much time. It's a couple of clicks away. I don't really need to explain it to anybody. All I do is, have you got any crypto? No, I don't really understand it. Brilliant. Yeah, here's some links. Have a read of those. Ask some questions. And that's it. And those questions they ask, I've even got a link to provide those answers. I don't even have to speak to them. Obviously, I do, because I'm a people person, etc. But 9 times out of 10, you don't really need to. And that's what I like about the Daxi idea. It's different to the rest, and it's kind of educated me on the world of crypto. So I kind of feel now a bit obliged to help and assist, as well as make some money as well moving forward.
Very good. Thanks, Gareth. I really appreciate you being so open and honest. Although I have to confess, I know your wife quite well. She's beautifully dressed, so the ASOS and the Amazon is worth it. And you make it sound very easy, so maybe we should pay you less. That's that. But that I'm sure everyone else listening to this call really appreciates you talking about how overpaid you are for sharing this. So no, thank you so much. I know you're super busy, so thank you very much, Gareth.
No problem. No.
So great. I've only got one more slide. So I just want to wrap up some of the themes that we've talked about today. So if you are either a property, apologies guys. So final slide.
Hi Mike. If you want to see the end of that, all you do.
Goodness me, what a thing to happen at the end of a presentation. Sorry guys, 1 second. So if I share that.
Nearly 3 years.
Can you just Can someone just raise your hand? Can you see that PowerPoint screen? Great, thank you very much. It's bad when you're a technology business. It's not working. So, am I recording? Yes. So, conclusion, we are in for a really stormy ride in property. The advice, I think, for my strategy has been to diversify now, if not sooner. Educate, educate, educate. Can't say that enough. That's a word that keeps coming up in this presentation. Property is a bit naughty for putting out stuff that looks like it's free. It's not. It's often a huge an entry session to then pay for education thereafter. Absolutely all our education is free. So there's huge amounts of resources via DAXI, webinars, online events, free ebooks. We've got one about crypto boom, one about Bitcoin halving, and some blue papers. So look, highly recommend that you catch up with some of those. Look, so I'm going to tie up now. I know that the technology has been a bit challenging, so apologies to those of you that might have missed the last few minutes. Thank you so much to my guest speakers. Thank you everyone that's joined, and thank you for listening again, and hope to see you online soon. Thanks, guys.